Hello and welcome to What's Up with Energy, a gridX podcast. I'm your host, Georgia Knapp, and today I'm very excited that we have gridX's own CTO and Managing Director, Tobias Mitter. So Tobias, thanks so much for being here with me.
Thanks, pleasure to be here.
I guess I should say I'm here with you because we're actually in the Aachen office for the first time.
Happy to have you, yeah.
Thank you. So I guess let's just dive right in and tell people a little bit about yourself. Maybe specifically what drove you into the world of renewable energy and clean technology.
I've been actually starting at university, building a startup with a couple of friends of mine. And that was not so much around energy at that point, but more about like digital platforms and how people can use digital platforms to do things faster and simpler. And one of our first major clients was actually energy utility. And at that point, we built the first all digital customer service platform for an energy utility in Germany. And that kind of got me hooked. Yeah. So my personal background is more in engineering and a little bit of law and information science. But that basically was the first touch point I had with the energy industry way back when I was at university. And then I moved on to do a couple of other things, worked for IBM and an international team, also did some management consulting with BCG and did a couple of other scale-ups that I supported. And it was always about either energy or about e-mobility. So I've done a lot of work with Volkswagen or Mercedes on e-mobility back then, on how you can drive the user experience, but also how you can connect it to digital platforms. So that kind of was always my thing. And then when I was at the point in my career where I thought about, okay, do I stay in consulting or do I move back to the business? I thought about, okay, what really matters to me? And that was clearly energy and renewable energies and having an impact on what we all need as communities to use more renewable energies. And that's when I moved back to E.ON, did some work there, and then was very lucky to then also meet the gridX founders at that point and joined gridX then 2.5 years ago.
Nice. And then today, you and I are going to be talking primarily about retrofitting. Do you have any prior experience with retrofitting before coming in to gridX? Because I always think of you as like the retrofit person for some reason, and I don't know why that is.
Okay, maybe because I'm talking about retrofitting so much.
Maybe
that's because I'm really excited about it because it has been a topic in the past, more from an industrial angle. So whenever it is about digitizing something or making things connect better, you are usually in a so-called brownfield. Means there are already devices in place that have been put there a couple of years ago. Imagine a factory or also a home, and they haven't been communicating with each other. And as technology evolves, you get to ideas of, hey, it would be actually cool if they could talk to each other, because then we could do way cooler things with them. So that was also a topic that I had a lot in automotive, also e-mobility in the past, but also in other work I've done. So tapping into what is already out there and making it smarter is, I think, a really good thing compared to just having to rebuy everything and throw away old stuff. Yeah? So, of course, we see this combination. Of course, a lot of things also being newly built, which is great. But getting the most out of what's already there, I think, is also a great case for people who've already invested into assets. Yeah?
Okay. And then for any of our listeners who might not know, just before we get even further into the subject, do you have like a brief explanation of what retrofitting is?
Yeah, absolutely. And please do challenge me on that, because it's, as you said, it's one of my favorite topics. So I'm really deep into it. So the actual idea is that especially homeowners who already have a PV or a battery or an EV charger at home have the opportunity to make it smarter by getting a gridbox from one of our partners, and that gridbox then makes the assets that they already have in home that were being optimized just as a single asset to make them really connect and talk to each other and behave more smartly by, for example, doing solar charging, solar heating, or consuming energy when the prices are low at the market. And that is actually a very easy way to get more out of the setup that you already have to save energy costs and to use more of your renewable energy in a smart way. And how does it then look in real life? People already have an inverter or a battery in their home. They go to one of our partners, like E.ON, Soli, for example, and they get an energy management system from them, which we very happily provide. And then this box connected to the cloud platform is just installed in the home, similar to a Wi-Fi router, very simple to do. It can then connect to the assets, talk to them, and make all the magic happen that we do in our optimization.
Okay. And when you were naming the different home energy assets a second ago, you didn't say heat pumps? Is that just because you just weren't listing off all of them, or are they not in the retrofit category?
That's a great catch. Thank you for that. So they are definitely in there because heat pumps are super important to optimize as well, because they have a very large consumption. So it's you can really earn a lot of or save a lot of energy costs when you optimize heat pumps as well.
Yeah.
That's why they are definitely in the game for us. And we already support some of the major heat pump OEMs in Europe, and are working on even more to extend that list continuously.
Okay. I think it's also because we just released our heat pump report. So heat pumps are very much on my mind
and that report is highly recommended. So you can download it for free. We'll probably also share the link after the podcast.
Good plug.
And it's really awesome what the team put together. A very comprehensive overview of the heat pump state across Europe. Also the different incentives, because of course every country in Europe is a little bit different when it comes to heat pumps, but also when it comes to retrofitting in general. So it's a great report, highly recommended.
Thank you. So why is retrofitting existing energy systems so complex? Is it primarily technical, regulatory? Is it just in people's imagination that it's complex?
Yeah, I think you already mentioned two very important things. So there is a technology challenge because the different assets were not meant to talk to each other in the past. So when you bought the asset at that point in time, the vendor or the OEM, how we call it, then only built it in a way that it works for itself and it has a simple interface, but the energy system was not as complex as it is today when it was bought back then. So that is one part of the challenge. The other part is that there are also a lot of differences in the languages that the assets speak. So you really have to know how to talk to an asset properly to understand it, to control it, to get all the right data from it. And then bringing that together across different assets, because the battery kind of speaks a different dialect or a different language than the heat pump you might have. And bringing that together to really make this optimization work is definitely something that we invest a lot of time on. So we have a team here in Aachen working on that every day, also with our own test lab, to really get these different combinations in the field that you can see to life. And just to maybe share one number from our experience, if you look at 40,000 different homes in the field, only 1,000 of them share the same combination of assets. So you have a lot of variation out in the field. And to make sure that every of these variations of the assets works perfectly is a lot of work. But we're happy to do that because it brings great results.
And when you say share the same combination of assets, you mean like they have a PV and a battery? You mean they have like a SunGrow PV plus?
Exactly.
I can't name a battery right now, but
an N-phase battery, for example.
Thank you. Okay.
Yeah.
And then are there any regulatory hurdles to retrofitting?
Yeah, there are also regulatory hurdles. And there, again, it depends a little bit on the country, with Germany being the most complex one. That's already infamous, for a German regulation. There it is important that to unlock the full value, you sometimes need a smart meter and also so-called Steuerbox in your home. That requires an installer or your metering company to then also install certain additional things. But you don't need that. You can already use also the energy manager in Germany without having a smart meter and a Steuerbox installed. However, to tap into the full value of it, you would have to run that process as well. Many of our partners help the end customers with that to get this right. Other than that, we see, at least for the retrofitting part, not that many regulatory hurdles across Europe, other than Germany. When it comes to the optimization side of things, there again, every country goes a slightly different route. So we really look very specifically at how can we build the optimization in the way that it runs perfectly in the Netherlands, as well as in the UK, as well as in Germany for the local regulation. And their systems need to tap into different behaviors to really get the most out of the optimization. And just to give one example, Netherlands is very famous for net metering, meaning you can then also feed back into the grid and have direct benefits from that. That will probably change going forward. In the UK, you have a quite advanced system also of virtual network operators and flexibility providers you can tap into, where in Germany it is a bit more conservative with very clear regulatory defined market roles.
Okay. Do regulations like 14A or 9 EEG, do those have anything to do with retrofitting or?
Yes, they do. They mostly affect new build systems right now. However, if you want to extend your existing system, for example, by adding a battery, because the prices have gone down and you might have had a charger in the past and a heat pump, but you didn't invest into a battery, now might be a good time to think about it. And if you do that, then you might also fall under this new regulation, 14A and 9 EEG, meaning that is then also a great case to add an energy management system and talk to your metering company to also get you a smart meter and a Steuerbox if you don't have one already. So we will see probably more of this kind of regulation across Europe, because we see many of the grids are really at their limits in some areas in terms of a lot of new renewable energy coming into the grid. Also, electricity consumption rising in general, with heat pumps, for example, being added to the grid. So I expect more regulation across Europe, similar to in Germany, to just stabilize the grids and make sure that we don't see any blackouts in the future.
Yeah. Okay. And then I don't think you have fully touched upon this yet, but correct me if I'm wrong. In your opinion, how does the fragmented nature of the existing infrastructure complicate retrofitting?
Yeah, it is. That's giving us a bit of a headache from time to time. Yeah, because if you look at the market share of EV chargers, for example, it's a super colorful pie chart because there are so many different players. Yes, it is a challenge because we, as I said earlier, we really need to check that we can effectively control and securely control all these different devices, and then having all these combinations that we see out in the field. And also, there's another fragmentation that we see because many of the markets are also dominated by the small and friendly neighborhood installer that people call if they want to buy a battery and retrofit maybe also an asset or an energy management system to their home. And those are usually very small companies, and they struggle also a little bit with all of that regulation and that digitalization in the grid going on. So we are really looking into ways how we can, either through our partners or directly through gridX, educate them, support them in being the important part of the energy transition that they could be, because they serve so many customers.
So you have been with gridX for over 2 years.
Yes.
Do you know, was retrofitting something that was already in gridX's mind, or is it something that we've had to adapt to with like the changing market?
A bit tricky. It was kind of in our mind because we already looked at how can we make it as simple as possible for installers to set up the devices and to make them talk to each other.
Yeah.
However, we were really focused on companies that have their own installation teams and who also do a lot of education for the installation teams and that focus on new build. And as we've seen a lot of the market growing outside of that channel, it became more important to us to think about, okay, how can we also support installers that are not part of our partners to use our products and to tap into that market. We also got approached by a couple of original equipment manufacturers that asked us, like Huawei or Solax, for example, hey, are there ideas on how we can also support setups that are already out in the field of different assets and add an energy management to it? So that also pushed that topic for us over the last 2 years.
Can you share an example of a particularly tough retrofit project that gridX had to tackle?
Yes. One was that there were a couple of thousand customers that already had an inverter that they used, a PV inverter. And the challenge was that our partner approached us with that there were a lot of complaints from customers that they didn't get the right data in the app. So they saw that the sun was shining, but the app didn't show that any PV production was there and the other way around. So they approached us and asked, okay, can we add gridX energy management to it to directly talk to the inverter to get better data quality? And we looked at it, and it was really tricky to work with the OEM to understand what's going wrong with their data transmission that they did directly to our partner in the past. And but we found a way to solve it, and we then shipped 2,000 or over 2,000 grid boxes to those customers, and they got a phone call and a phone appointment, and then were guided through how to plug it in, which is like super simple. You plug in power and you plug it next to your router, Wi-Fi router, and then you're done. And that solved an issue for our customer that has been there for quite some time, and they were really concerned about losing customers over it. And retrofitting was their great example on how you can even very old inverters, in that case, may turn into smarter devices that can then also fit into a modern app and also bring the right data to the customers.
Okay, because if they had not been able to solve, or we had not been able to solve the retrofitting problem for them, would the customers have most likely found like another service provider that could, or would they have all gotten new PV inverters?
I think most of them just would have given up, skipped the app, and would have stayed with their PV inverter probably, because replacing it is quite expensive. But I think they would have definitely canceled the contract with our partner. So there was definitely a churn risk, and our partner, of course, wanted to keep the customer.
Yeah. And when you talk about like trying to retrofit, we're basically talking about coding, right? Like you just go in and do fancy codes, like.
Yeah, it is coding and a lot of testing.
Okay.
So how does it actually work? We then find the devices and usually start looking at the documentation of what is the vendor documented in terms of what interfaces are available. And then we start evaluating, is that actually true? This sounds odd a little bit, but the reality out there is that a lot of the documentation claims that certain things should work that don't work in reality. So then we start digging our way through in terms of, okay, does it pass the test that we have? There's usually then also the need to talk to the vendor so that they can make some changes in their firmware, for example, to really make it work. And once all the boxes are ticked off there, we have some tests defined to make sure that we are ready to start. we start then also developing the code for the driver. Yeah, it's a little bit like when you plug in something into your PC. Then there's also a small program making sure that it connects well, and that is something we also develop then for the asset. And the team then starts hacking, builds the driver, and tests it then also in our test lab. So we also take the software then into a real life scenario and see, does it behave correctly? Do we get the right meter readings? Do we get the right PV production? Can we control the PV production? Can we do 14A, Section 9 EEG, and so on? And take it through a couple of tests before it gets the final sign off and can be rolled out to customers. And that is something that is done by a team of 15 people right now.
Okay.
So it's a lot of effort. It can be frustrating sometimes if it needs a lot of back and forth with the OEM. But in the end, everyone is more happier because we have a good control of the device. We can also build great apps for the end users, who can see if the device is working, if the optimization is working. And usually also the OEMs, even though they usually have to make some adaptations on their end, are also happy because they have a device that works well for our customers and gives them the opportunity that this is sold more to end customers in the end.
How long does the process of retrofitting usually take? Like the coding and the testing, or is it really just depend?
There are two ways how we do it. One is everything is done at gridX, and then it can take. It really then depends on how well the documentation is and how smooth also the physical testing in the test lab works. In the best case, from a couple of weeks to sometimes also a couple of months, if the OEM also needs to change something on their end, and sometimes they have their release cycles and update cycles for firmware as well. So there are dependencies that are sometimes out of our control, and that then can prolong the timeline. So that is one way. Again, in a good case, just 1 to 2 weeks, and in the longer case, it can be up to a couple of months. Okay. That is why we also introduced a second way to do it, because we felt, okay, it's great if we invest a lot of time, but maybe there's also a smarter way to share the work between us and the manufacturer. And that is what we call Ready for gridX, where we have a tool set and also very clear guidance on what we need to connect the asset and make retrofitting accessible even faster. And this means that the OEM the manufacturer also does part of the work. And that becomes increasingly popular, which I'm very happy about. So we already have a couple of OEMs joining us in the Ready for gridX program, where we share the challenges of getting interconnectivity of assets done. And this is also what I see as the future of integrations and of retrofitting, that we work very closely together as manufacturers and as gridX together with our customers to get as much retrofitting done as possible.
Thanks. Actually, that brings me to, how do you think the conversation around retrofitting will evolve in the next 5 to 10 years?
How I see the discussion evolving is that we will see even more and a lot of more renewable assets out in the field compared to today. So making those connect to each other will become increasingly important. So it will become more of a topic, how to make sure with retrofitting that as much things are connected as possible. And that's basically for 3 reasons. The first reason is the pressure from the grid. We already see today that some of the grid operators decline adding or connecting new assets to the grid if no control over the asset is possible. So that is where a customer with retrofitting can show the grid operator, hey, my device is controllable. So in case there's a grid emergency, you can also lower the consumption of my EV charger, for example. So that's the first one. I think the second one is that consumers become increasingly interested in seeing in one app what actually is happening at their home. Am I saving money? Am I using all the PV production in the best way possible? And they will expect to see this in one app. And that also requires that we have retrofitting of energy management systems like gridX, because only that allows you to see everything in one app. Otherwise, you would have to juggle like 2 to 3 different apps, one for your battery, one for your heat pump, one for your EV charger, and maybe one for your EV. And that is what we know from user research, that people don't want that. They want one app, everything in one place. Exactly. Yeah. And the third one is that also the manufacturers themselves see that they can create upsell opportunities for themselves if they offer a retrofitting solution to existing customers. So imagine somebody already has a PV inverter. It's a great case to sell them a battery as well. And if you can combine this with not only selling them a battery, but making their whole setup more modern and compliant and enabled the consumer to save more money, that's a great case for them. Yeah? So we have a lot of conversations in that direction as well.
Okay. If you had a magic wand and could change one thing about the current energy system to make retrofitting easier, what would you do?
Yeah, that's a tough question. I think it is making customers participate in energy markets without having to go through this pain of having a smart meter, connecting it, etc. Because that is really what helps not only the consumers to save money, but also in the end helps the grid if we control the assets through prices on the market. But right now, the burden or the hurdle you need to jump over to get there is quite high. So finding that, because what is sometimes a bit ridiculous is that we have a lot of the data that would be needed for that. We already have the meter data, even without a smart meter. We already know the state of the assets. We can take control signals from grid operators as well as from energy utilities or other parties and implement them. But regulation is still quite complex around that with a lot of players. So making that easier to have more people participate and flexibility, I think that would be great. And that would accelerate retrofitting also a lot.
And then what keeps you optimistic, even when the pace of the changing energy systems actually feels quite slow?
I think we need to deal with the fact that if you look at it globally, that coal, for example, still remains also on an all-time high, unfortunately. But the underlying transition, which is primarily also driven by the prices of batteries and PV panels and inverters, is definitely on its way. So for me, there is no turning back, and it's just about working together and creating smart ideas on how we can accelerate this even further. And that gets me out of bed each day, for sure.
Nice. Well, that is a good place to end that, and that leads us right into my rapid fire round.
Oh, wow. I need to get prepared. Yeah.
So full disclosure, I did have a developer help me with some of these questions. So some of them I'm not actually sure what I'm asking you, but we're going to go with it.
Yeah, let's go ahead.
If you had to explain your tech stack using only emojis, which 3 would you choose?
Oh boy. Our tech stack using emoji. It would definitely be a pretty person, and a pretty and accessible person. They're also the gender neutral ones, so you can decide whether you want to go for male, female, or gender neutral. Being like the friend to the customer, which is basically our front end. Yeah.
Okay.
Being like the great person you can talk to and you can interact with. Then it is.
That's what the tech stack is. It's front end, back end, full stack.
Yes, and that's.
I get it now.
And then we've got. Like the brain, which is our optimization platform, doing all the smart decision taking. And then you have the rocket, which is basically all the connectivity layer, but also all the data layers that we have underneath that really need to work highly reliable at high speed and scale as crazy to make that whole thing work, which would, very spontaneously be the 3 emojis I would use.
If you could be any home energy asset, which would you be?
Probably a bidirectional car. Why a bidirectional car? Because you are still mobile. You can still take people places. You have a large battery, but you don't only consume energy like cars do today, but you can also feed back energy to the home or to the grid. So I think that's the power asset of the future.
Nice. What is the most sustainable thing you have done this month?
In terms of CO2, of course, I try to avoid flying and go by train, etc. I think it is probably switching our dog food fully to vegan. It used to be 50-50 and kind of transitioning it to fully vegan dog food, and now it's fully vegan.
How does your dog feel about that?
She eats everything, so she's happy.
What has been your favorite piece of energy news from the past year?
Oh, that's interesting because there's been so many. I think am I allowed to also use gridX news? Because
sure.
Yeah. So I think for gridX it was definitely the Ready for gridX news that Solax, GoodWe, and the other OEMs joined us.
Yeah.
From the industry, wow, there's been really many out there. I think if I would have to choose one, I would probably again use the negative electricity prices on the market that were already there also last year.
Yeah.
Because it's like a strong signal also to customers and to other market players that there is a lot to gain from renewables in the market if we manage that smartly and right.
Yeah. Thanks. What is one piece of legacy tech that you wish you could ban from the energy system forever?
A legacy piece I would like to see removed is like the manual relays that we have in several homes for controlling heat pumps and replacing that with a digital interface.
Okay, nice. And then what is the most overused buzzword in clean tech right now?
Flexibility, probably, because everybody uses it slightly different. And it is super important.
Yeah.
Sometimes I feel that there are different interpretations or different angles to it. So I'm not sure if it's overused, but it's definitely used a lot.
Yeah.
Maybe let me think again in terms of overused. AI, I would say.
That's true. Yeah.
Because if you then double click on what AI is actually doing in certain products, it is just like putting the AI label on it. And for example, we do AI for quite some time in certain parts of the optimization. But we also have a clear view on where it doesn't make sense to use AI, and there are better methods to get to results. So I feel that is a bit overused in parts of the industry.
Well, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today.
Thanks so much for having me. It was fun.
Yeah, this was very... I kind of had an idea of retrofitting, but this actually made the topic even more interesting to me.
Yeah, great. I hope we got to the bottom of it because it is quite a complex topic. But maybe to just summarize it in very simple terms, it's actually upgrading your setup and making it smarter without having to change a lot. Just plugging in a smart device that helps you upgrade all the devices you already have in your home and saving money. That's basically it.
I mean, that's the ideal solution.
Yeah, should be.
If you'd like to learn more about the world of renewable energy or energy management systems, be sure to check out our website, gridX.ai, where we produce regular blogs and glossaries about the subject. You can also follow us on LinkedIn or on Twitter and Instagram at getgridX.